that's a very just different way of living every day, because you're not the one calling the shots anymore.
Well, and then the other thing that you're praying is in that same prayer is give me my daily bread.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the thing I've learned and I am learning, it's like Indiana Jones as he's walking in the movie where it's like he doesn't even see the floor in front of him, but he's required to take a step. And then as he steps, the floor appears. That's how Jesus is guiding us. It's like you just trust that the floor is going to appear in front of you. And I think that is the biggest lesson we have learned. Again, not just up in our heads, but experientially through this whole journey.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home. Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Today we are back. Christi and I are back after a number of incredible interviews to start the new year, starting with our children, of course, and then moving on to some real incredible wisdom over the last number of weeks from a number of incredible people. And I don't want to give a favorite. I was going to say my favorite. I have favorite nuggets from those that have been I've been sitting with over these last couple of weeks. And so I hope you guys have appreciated those. Would love to hear your thoughts. So if you want to leave us a review, that would be awesome. Today we're talking about the lessons learned from the road. And before we do that, I just want to highlight just two really cool things. Next week, we're actually going to be talking with Christi. I have other really cool interview, my favorite human in the whole world. Christi, I'm going to be interviewing her, and we're going to be talking about living tender and fierce and what that looks like, and just the launch of the Tender and Fierce Coaching Cohort that Christi is launching this spring, starting in April. So please make sure that you check that out. We haven't even really announced it or talked about it, and so just kind of seeding that out there a little bit, but officially it is live, ready to rock and roll. And then we have the MyKidsEQ Coaching Cohort coming up. That starts March 4th. Registration ends February 26th. Would love for you to jump in on that as we take, I even just talked to a pastor today who's going to join this, and just idea of really cultivating emotional safety within the context of their youth ministry and church. And so it's really cool. We're really excited about that. And here we are. Welcome back, Christi.
I know. I feel like I forget how to talk. Like, I know how to talk, but like you just did a great intro there. Like I forget what to say. Like what do I say? Although what
have you been saying?
I'm mostly excited. I really want to talk about Tender and Fierce next time, but that has been what's like percolating in me for the last number of months. But I also want to talk about what we have learned, because it has been a few months now, and we're back in Tennessee. And if you'll notice this video, if you're watching on YouTube, it's a very different spot.
We got a really cool setup.
Really cool setup here.
Really great.
It's really, really sweet. But we've learned a ton. I feel like all God adventures.
Lessons learned, on the journey. Yeah.
But really, like, coming away, I've had a lot of people ask, like, so what were your takeaways? What were the big things you learned? And I was like, oh, it was interesting that they said it that way. That wasn't like, how was your time in Pennsylvania? How was your time being back in Tennessee? It was like, what were the takeaways? And I was like, ooh, that's good.
Yeah. And before you jump in, I think it's important, if you're listening for the first time, back last year around July, August, we sold our house in Tennessee. We thought we were just going to give a real quick catch you up. You can go back and listen to Straub's New Family Adventure. We did that late last summer, where we sold our house in Tennessee. We thought we were going to RV for a season, and so that was the plan, is to sell our house. We got some land in Tennessee to eventually build on, and the goal was to go to Pennsylvania, where we have this really amazing 950 square foot cabin around our extended family, my mom, my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, my cousins, and it's in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania. It's an amazing, amazing place. And we thought we would base there and then bring an RV to Tennessee and base here, but then RV, we homeschool, do all that. And we learned pretty quickly that wasn't, well, we just one day at a time. I'll talk about what we learned. Here we are, and we are now in February, and we are back in Tennessee, and we have the place in Pennsylvania, but we chose to nix the RV thing. And so that's kind of the quick update for where we are and how we didn't even get into why we ended up back in Tennessee. I think that's a lesson. I skipped over that because it's a lesson, but
yeah. And I've had it has been a ton of lessons. Like, it's been a lot of learning to discern not just the will of God, because I really think so often God uses stepping stones to get us to obedience and to just follow. And so I think let's talk about the first one. I mean, selling the house was a huge step of faith for both of us. But I think you felt it probably even more than I did. Like, to me, it was just this clear, like, I'm sending you to Pennsylvania for a season. And so if I hear the Lord say something that clearly, it's like, done. Like, I'm there. But it's obviously much harder for like one spouse to hear something from the Lord and try to communicate that to someone else. And we talk about this a ton, especially with marriages, because so often it's that one spouse typically, what would you say what would you say the term is? Like, it's like they're told first by God, and then
totally
I
think there's one spouse that hears from the Lord a little bit more. Maybe
no. I don't think it's clearer. I think it's just
he
first.
Speaks to one first.
I remember our premarital counselor saying that, and in their dynamic, it was her as well. But he was like, we've watched this over all the decades of marriage. The Lord tells her first and prepares her heart. She prays. And then eventually, I come on board and it's confirmed because it's both of us in unity. Right. And I think that was even that lesson in and of itself, like, we've learned that multiple times over. We've watched this happen again and again. But to continue walking that out, I think we're more unified and then courageous also in making big decisions because we trust God and how he speaks to each of us individually.
Well, I think that's what's really cool. And in the next couple of weeks, we're actually going to we have some really cool things coming up with the podcast and with some switching around to some things we're doing. But part of that is, a new way that we are wanting to encourage and challenge families. And I think it is a leveling up for what God is calling us to do and how we are to lead as families in this hour that we find ourselves in for such a time as this. And so to even set this up, I think it's really important to identify that for years, we were in a house that we had an HOA, and so we were in a neighborhood and that type of thing. And we could just really sense God moving us out of that environment because we started homeschooling. We moved there because the schools were amazing. But we found our kids wanting to do more homesteading and chickens and we were limited. We couldn't do those things and we couldn't be out in the land. And so we found ourselves on the weekends going, what are we going to do this weekend? And you're walking the neighborhood and just, for us, we wanted to be out. We really wanted to be out. And so we had been praying into this for a long time, many years, and just seeking the Lord on it. And so I think, for us, it's going, okay, how can we live our lives in such a way? Part of being out is we wanted to invite in. We wanted to be able to have a place where we could invite people to, where we could be an outpost for the kingdom of God, to be able to invite people in and be a light in this world. We are to be salt and light, to go out into the world, to make disciples, and to be that. And that's been our heart, especially as our kids have gotten a little bit older. It's gotten to a place where they can help us be that. And we want to help cultivate that as a team, as the Straub team. And so that's the vision behind all of this. We didn't just the Lord speaks to Christi to go, okay, you guys need to sell your house. But it wasn't in a vacuum. it was in years of praying and us being on the same team and really going, okay, Lord, what do you have for us? And so I just want to set the stage for that, because if you're listening and you're going, man, that was great of you guys to do that. Listen, I am as comfortable of I love being safe, okay? I wrote a book called Safe House for a reason. I love being safe. We were in the safest neighborhood and the safest, like financially safe. We were everything safe for so many years. And so when Christy does hear from the Lord to say jump, it's taking me a little bit longer. I just want to give you context to that. It's taking me a little bit longer because I tend to play it safe. And I'm going, okay, really? And I'll tell you this whole journey. I'm just going to jump into two of the lessons God has taught me real quickly. One is, and this gets real deep real quick, and these are episodes worth of lessons that are not, I just can't, I'm going to drop it and then we'll have to unpack it another time. But he's taught me to walk with him every single day. That he's not going to give me what I need for tomorrow because he wants to walk with me today. And that is the single greatest lesson I have learned. And of course, we're all like, wow, okay. I always known that in my head, but I never experienced it the way that I'm experiencing it through this journey, is to truly just trust Jesus. And he delights in me walking with, he delights in me. He loves me. We have so much fun together. It's so cool to experience. And so someone said to me, oh, well, you're going to have to go back and tell people you were going to RV. Does it feel embarrassing to say you're not buying an RV? No, because we did that journey. We went to an RV show. We researched them like crazy. And each day we would wake up and I would pray and I would seek the Lord on what is it he would have us to do today? And he has allowed us to be on this journey. I think he used that to get us to where we are today. And I think that's what Christy was alluding to earlier. But that whole idea of walking with Jesus and seeing him show up in the here and now and into today, that's one of the greatest lessons I've learned. And so in context, this was going on for a long time, these conversations, these prayers, this praying into. But our heart is for families to get on the same team, to be a glimpse, to offer a glimpse of who Jesus is, to offer a glimpse of the salt and the light in this dark world, to offer a taste, just a little bit. Someone goes, oh, wait, what are you guys doing? I want some of what you carry. We want to help you guys carry that so that we can multiply for the kingdom of God. And you've heard us talk about that with Jordan Rayner and others in these last couple of weeks. You kind of see how that set the tone and set us up to where we are now. But anyway, that's the context here for kind of what Christy was talking about. So you get the word.
And we did. And we went. And this makes it, I almost hate making it sound like it's like tied up in a little bow. So let me tell you what was super hard. Our time there, let me wrap that up real fast at what you just said. I do think the RV thing, it's so funny. I haven't thought about it in so long.
I know, it was
so long time ago. But it was the thing I think that got us to go, because it was like, oh, that part, that'd be the fun adventure. That's fun. Okay. But we got there and we're in the middle of Amish country, and it is like a little, almost idyllic in some ways, where you watch their buggies go by and the way they live their life. And I loved that. I loved that slow lifestyle, that connected to the earth, that groundedness, that you put your hands to a garden or a plow or a woodworking, whatever woodworkers use, at least Amish woodworkers. And they're lovely. It was just wholesome and good. And I loved it. I loved the pace. And to me, I really call it was a cave season. I just went into a cave and I was fine. I was just fine. But I don't know what lesson we're on, but what I really saw in the middle of it was the kids. They're yearning for community again, even though we're surrounded by family there. And that was wonderful. And I think that filled voids in us that we've never, ever lived near family. And so for all of us to be near family, to be able to walk down our little lane to Josh's grandparents, which is, so my kids' great grandparents just down the lane, and they walk over like every day and they drop off pie, or we go for walks and we walk by their house and they're all out front. So we get to,
it's amazing.
It just becomes, conversation on the daily, like actual living in family community. We've never had that. So that was rich in ways like I can't even put into words.
And can we you're going to jump into the kids.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the kids, and then we'll talk about the extended family component of that, because I think there's a lesson there that's really powerful.
Yeah, but with the kids, we started to notice, for a while it was fine, but this desire for home and community, and I miss Tennessee, and I miss
And for context, they had been here for 8 years, mm-hmm. right? So I mean, most of their lives, they have their friends, their community, their activities, all of those things had been here. And now we were in the middle of nowhere. And granted, as you said, we're a family, but they lost all that.
Yeah. And so that was, it was just interesting to walk alongside them through that and not try to fix it, because I can't. And I didn't feel like this was our season to like find friends there. Like, it just wasn't. It was for family. We were there to be with family, and we were there to, I think, just recalibrate. It was like a true quiet season, and they would play outside, and that was so sweet, but it was hard for them, and their little hearts missed home. And I think what clarified, because we've lived a lot of different places. I'm Canadian, like I haven't lived in a place that I would call like in air quotes home, in, I don't know, 20 years or so. And so we could really be anywhere. And I think that was sort of even the fleece before the Lord, is like, where do we put down roots? Like, where is home? And through the journey, it was watching the kids missing their church back here, missing friends, and not even just their peer friends. I think this was really interesting. Missing the adults in our lives that love them so well and just come around our family. Like we call
our family.
Yeah. It was just it wasn't just like, I miss my friend, so-and-so. It was like, I miss Uncle Darren and Aunt Julie. I miss like adults, our friends.
Yeah.
And that was really sweet when you realized those people, though they're not actual family, filled such a place in their hearts. It was like they were. And it left a void for them. And so that was super confirming for me and clarifying that this really is home. And I think the Lord's reassurance of like, it's okay to put down roots here, because I'm settling you in a place and a space for, and again, we always leave that open. We'll go when he says to go. And yet it's really nice when he lets you stay.
That's right. Yeah, it's a good word. And I think the other thing too that was happening, and this is the thing that I learned about our kids, this is the way that I summarize it when someone says, hey, where are you guys at right now? And I summarize it this way, that, on a continuum of RVing the country and freebirding it on one end of the scale, on one end of the continuum, and having so many animals to the point that you can't even leave to travel anywhere because you have so many animals on this end of the spectrum, we learned that our kids veered way more over on the side of the spectrum of homesteading than they did on the RVing. And it was probably because we were also around a lot of farms and Amish and, animals the entire time we were in Pennsylvania.
But they've wanted that for a long time.
They had wanted that for a long time. And then I think in addition to Christi being in 950 square feet,
I didn't even add that.
The thought of going smaller on the road made it, because we didn't have a washer and dryer, we didn't have a bathtub, we were laundromatting it, we were doing all that. And so we were starting to feel the effects of what RVing could look like, although we were stationary. And I think we just learned it wasn't for our family. And I think, to me, that's the whole point of this whole conversation is we stepped out in faith, and it's just been so fun to watch what God has been doing when you just surrender and open your hands and go, okay, Lord, here's what we want to do. And we want to follow you in this. We want to pursue what you're doing. But that's unique to our family. And I think, that's the whole point, getting back to what Christi said about husband and wife, and even just in the context of like praying to the Lord of what is unique for our family. Because there's a lot of you listening who are RVing families, and that is what you are called to do. And I think it's just important that we each know what the Lord is calling us to and how he wants each of us to be a glimpse for other people.
Yeah. And I think with that said, like they'd had enough travel. And I think because they'll go with dad. Josh always takes one of the kids when he speaks and stuff. So, and they've just traveled a fair bit. And so that wasn't novel. And this desire for roots, like when you talk about having roots and wings, which is something we've always prayed and valued for our kids and for us, that they would have roots and wings. And I think the wings part, they were like, yeah, that's cool. We get that. But the roots part is the longing, is the desire. And it'd be worth, I think, just even to think of that for your own family. Like, where's the place that we feel calling to emphasize right now? Because I think it just comes in seasonal waves. Like, which one needs more emphasis right now? But roots and wings, I think, are both important. And to feel the freedom to fly, but also then to know that home is solid and steadfast, and I will say safe.
And
because you love that word.
Another thing that we're learning is just being in the context of the place that you are. And so as I walk with Jesus every single day, I'm also just learning the will of God for my life. The conversation I had with Jordan Rayner a few weeks ago, I'd really encourage you to listen to that. That's a homeschool lesson right there, by the way. You have your kids listen to that. I just really genuinely believe that what really makes the difference and what really matters for eternity is how we're treating the people that we're with in the present moment, right here and now. How we're treating the animals that we're with, how we're treating the people that we're with, and that matters. Mm-hmm. And so wherever you are, whether you're on the road, whether you have roots, whether you have wings, that we're truly present. And I think we're living in a day and age that is so rushed and so busy that we don't fully stay present. And I just really, part of our initiative moving forward, as we do a couple new rebranding things, if you will, is this whole idea of being present in community. And we're going to talk quite a bit about that, because those are more, even the lessons that we have learned in this journey are reshaping how we think about what we do here on this podcast and the direction we're heading with it and the people we'll have on and the way that we launch episodes and the topics we talk about and that type of thing. So I think it's really, it's cool what the Lord is doing in each of us as that has happened. It's definitely increased my joy.
You have been, well, and say even like, I mean, I have a million thoughts going through my head, but when we got here, when we came back, and that was a surprise in and of itself.
That's a whole other
That was a surprise.
story.
So many people were like, oh, so was this the plan? Like to come back in January? We came back in January. And we're like, no, there was no plan, like a plan. It has just truly been a listening and discerning. And I don't even say that with like, please hear me. I really hope this doesn't sound like, oh, tooting your own horn. I pray that doesn't even, we just pray that off in the name of Jesus. But I pray what you hear is like just some other families that are trying to live like Jesus asked us to, like just follow. Mm-hmm. And you realize how little control you really have over life anyway. Yeah. The rest of it is just this, like, I think what Josh tried to contrive early on in our family was this sense of like false safety where like everything is just so because it makes you feel better. And yet at the same time, obviously the floor can fall out at any point. And he is God. He is God, whether you're walking on a tightrope at 30,000 feet, or you're walking down the road like our 3-year-old and trip and fall on flat ground. Like it, yeah. And I think it's just the asking and walking alongside of like, where's he? I just want to walk beside him. And so that's been freeing in a lot of ways, and also terrifying, because you realize how little control you really have over your life. And in a lot of these ways, like truly giving up your choice. Like when you actually say, I pray that, you know, my will becomes your will. Like I don't want my own anymore because I've tried that. I just want you what you want. And that's a very just different way of living every day, because you're not the one calling the shots anymore.
Well, and then the other thing that you're praying is in that same prayer is, give me my daily bread. Yeah. And I think for me, the thing I've learned and I am learning, it's like Indiana Jones as he's walking in the movie, where it's like he doesn't even see the floor in front of him, but he's required to take a step. And then as he steps, the floor appears. That's how Jesus is guiding us. It's like you just trust that the floor is going to appear in front of you. And I think that is the biggest lesson we have learned. Again, not just up in our heads, but experientially through this whole journey. And, you know, I think, you know, as Christi was talking about safety and all that, it's amazing how I don't even know how to put this into words, but I released a lot of that when we put, first of all, Joshua Becker's episode a few years ago, when he was talking to us about, you know, just biblical simplicity, minimalism, whatever word you want to put to it, but getting rid of stuff. But then when we put all of our quote unquote stuff in a storage unit in Tennessee, and we moved to 950 square feet, and then we come back to Tennessee with that stuff, and you look through that stuff and you go, 90% of that stuff we haven't even put back into the house we're at now, because
it's so true.
It's
and
just
we got
wild
rid of
to me.
half our stuff, probably.
But there's
and
an
even
untethering.
The stuff totally.
That's what I'm referring. There's an untethering to things and things that make you feel safe.
But that's what I'm saying. Like even the stuff that we kept, like you go through all your stuff and you keep like only half of it, you feel like you're like dialed in to like the really significant things to you. And then you live in 950 square feet and you realize how few things you actually need. Although I do desire more space with 3 children and like 3 pets and the whole thing. But the amount of space to hold your stuff is really super helpful actually and clarifying. And I love it. Like I loved it. And then we came back and we do still have all of our stuff, not all of our stuff. We have stuff in storage. And I like go and look at the boxes and he's like, do you want to bring anything else in? And I'm like, nah, like I'm good. Like I just, like sometimes we don't even have like a bowl. We'll have people over and I'm like, oh, I don't have a bowl big enough for that. We'll just
partially
make do.
Because we left stuff in Pennsylvania with the cabin so we could have it furnished for when we go back there and with family.
But like even this place isn't furnished. And I was having a sweet conversation with a friend. And I was like, look at my cabinets. They're just like I haven't even organized them. They're just, stuff is just in places. And it's just this release for me. I'm an Enneagram 1, if you're an Enneagram person or know what that means. So my tendency would be toward more organization, and people like to use the word perfectionism. I don't know. I really don't think I'm that anymore. But you know, at least having things ordered, and now there's just this different sense of like, it's good enough. And she was like, this is so good. And I was like, I know, right? Like, you know, where do you put the measuring cups? I don't know. Like somewhere over on that shelf is good. I'm like, I don't know. And that to me shows me, I know I'm doing well. Mm-hmm. It means I know I'm growing and I'm healing in a lot of ways and I'm being set free, because those things that would make me feel better or safer to have that dialed in. And now there's just a letting go. Oh my gosh, that makes me want to talk about tender and fierce. Anyway.
We'll do that next episode.
Okay. That links a lot of things with tender and fierce, if some of that resonates with you.
Coaching cohort coming up in April. We'll put it in the show notes today.
Like dial that back.
I'm going to just say this too, just for those of you wondering in the back of your brain. We came back to Tennessee. We are renting while we look to build. We do have that land, so we're renting, and we're just trying to figure out, again, continue. And that was a whole other story of like God, just one step at a time, just figuring it out. And so that's what we chose to come back and do in that process.
Did we choose it really? I feel like it was just dropped in our laps.
Well,
We were mostly just
was
basically told, like,
it was,
you're actually supposed to come live here starting in January.
It was
like,
basically, it was.
Okay, cool.
There was no, like, it was, you just knew the Spirit of God was leading it the entire time. And so with that said, leaving Pennsylvania was difficult, but it wasn't near as difficult as I thought it was going to be, because there was something that happened within the context of our family while we were there, not just our nuclear family, but our extended family. So I was going to get to that. I could have never, number one, never known would happen. And number two, wouldn't have even known it needed to happen. Mm-hmm. And it did. And that is that there was a unity, a spirit of unity. You could say even a spirit of healing, and just a beauty and a connectedness that has developed with me and my grandparents and my parents and my aunts and my uncles, with Christi and all of those people, with our kids and all of those people, and how God just used that time to really solidify the power of extended family for us. And even though we're not physically in the same location, we are closer than we've ever been in spirit, and we will be back there more often physically than what we had been in the past. And I would have never, ever expected that to happen in the way that it did until we just obeyed the word jump. Mm-hmm. And that is something that continues to be lived out and beautiful, where I didn't even put words to it, or couldn't put words to it, and didn't even recognize it until probably a few weeks ago when we were back here telling friends, and it just came out in the way that it did. And it's just been really cool and beautiful. And so we share these things to encourage and to lift up. Number one, to update y'all, because we've been getting questions. And number two, for each of you for us to set the stage for what's coming in how we address stuff. Because we're just at a point where we want to live at a higher level, walking in Jesus unashamedly, and disciple-making families, helping families cultivate, even locally in your local community. What does that look like to surround yourselves with other families who are doing this and living this way to build for the kingdom of God, where our families, our children, have so much more purpose than they could have ever realized, than anything the world will ever give them. Mm-hmm. And in many cases, what we have bought into in our culture. And I think we're discovering that. We're being set free in a lot of that. And so there's some really cool, fun things coming up. And even just a lot of the topics we talk about, the ways we talk about them. And so I think this really sets the stage for a lot of that. So, and I just want to say this, a lot of you are listening going, well, what's in this for me? And how do we, I pray Holy Spirit has brought something into your heart, into your mind, that is a takeaway for you. That is something for you to go, okay, know right now, as you walk with Holy Spirit, even as you're listening to this episode, what he might be calling you to. Yeah. And there might be something that he's calling your family to do. And it doesn't necessarily mean he's telling you to sell your house or that type of thing. I mean, it could be, but it could be as simple as starting with a date, with a child, with your spouse. I don't know what that is, but you do. And I pray that you know what will take your family to the next level, that one step. And if you don't, pray. Just start asking. We saw it for years. And here we are. So
that's good.
It's my encouragement to you.
That's good.
What you got?
Actually, it just made me really emotional. It's been good. It's been hard. It's been good. I think knowing that following the way of Jesus is good and hard. I think we all know that. But the more, I think just we're living in a day and age where it's just not this comfortable Christianity. I don't know if that's a choice anymore. And I think the sooner we get that really clear, we're just free. We're free to live fully and stop worrying about the rest of it. So I pray that for all of you. Like, be set free and go follow whatever he says to do today. And if you don't know him, send us an email. We'll talk to you about it because he'll change your life.
Go to famousathome.com, send us an email through the contact page. We'd love to talk to you about that. We're going to talk about Tender and Fierce next week. Living Tender and Fierce. It's coming up.
So excited.
MyKidsEQ program launching, 3rd cohort. We are got some fun plans for that coming up. And this will be our last cohort that we run in the style that it's currently in. So if you haven't gotten in, make sure you get in because this will be the last time we run it in this format before we switch to something different. And so more details are not coming up, but make sure you get in on this spring cohort. We would love to have you if you're a therapist, you're a teacher, you're a pastor, you're a parent, you're homeschooling. The MyKidsEQ Coaching Cohort is really amazing. We do live coaching calls, and I'm jumping in on those, answering any questions y'all have as you get to implement the 8-week KidsEQ Academy curriculum. So biblically based EQ program. Guys, we love you all. Keep in mind, until next week, that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.
Keep being famous at home.